Welcome back for another installment of Fellowship of the Rink, brought to you by our incredible and local friends at Waggle Golf. With me, well, I was going to say, as always, I'm following the intro script here, Joe, but me for, I guess, the third or fourth time now here that I'm filming on the show, Joe Smith, the mighty Joe Smith of The Athletic, bringing you all the insider info on your Minnesota Wild and Gophers hockey. How's it going, Joe?
Going well. Yeah, it's been crazy start to the season. My son's starting to walk, so that's been a big development for us. So that's gonna eventually a lot of steps in for myself to chase him around eventually. But so that's been the big milestone. But yeah, it's the season for the Wild hasn't gone nearly as the way that I think all of us anticipated based upon the group that was coming back. So that's kind of added a little more kind of intrigue to what we've been writing the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, and you said it, crazy start to the season. Talk about like the highs of the first game to start the year to the lows of, coming back kind of in a game only to, fall in the third or overtime. We got a lot of questions from our great listeners here today as we will be diving into a heavy mailbag. But anything just right off the top, Joe, and I know we'll probably cover some of these topics, but like anything right off the top, like most of the questions are like specific questions in regards to things about management or things about coaching, which is awesome. Love just how dialed in Wild fans are. But, a good half of them are just like, what is wrong with the team? So like high level, like what can you do to put out the flame versus fan the flame of concern for these Minnesota Wild fans right now?
Sundays are fun days at Zamboni's on 7th Restaurant and Bar. They love hockey, they love St. Paul, and they love bingo. Their charitable gambling sponsors are St. Paul Capitals Youth Hockey, and they've partnered with them for Sunday bingo with great cash prizes, including a $1,000 coverall game. Take advantage of free street parking on Sundays and stop in for great food and drink, cash prizes, and of course, THC raffles during Zamboni's on 7th, Wake and Bake, and Smash Mouth Pizza Brunch Bingo Sundays. Come get it.
Well, I mean, if there's good news is that, a lot of these guys have more in them, right? Like there's not like they're maximizing their potential right now and still losing 6 out of 7 games, right? Like I think Russo and I wrote a story for Friday or Saturday just on, the growing pains for the youth were kind of expected, just the veterans underperforming wasn't. And for this team to max out its potential, it needs their veteran core to deliver. The Kaprizovs, Foligno, Hartman, even like Faber's a veteran now because he's, established as their top defenseman. Spurgeon, like there haven't really been anybody who's having a really great year right now. Boldy's been one of the few constants and bright spots up front, and Gustafsson, even though he gave up 5 goals on Saturday, I thought he was really good after, give them a chance to come back, which they ultimately they nearly did early on. So I think if you want an optimistic, or if you want okay, this is not complete doom and gloom, is the fact that you've seen before some of these guys be able to produce at higher levels than they are. Kaprizov was a Hart Trophy caliber guy the first half of last season. This year he's got no even strength goals other than the empty netter. Like that's not him. He's having too many turnovers, uncharacteristically amount of turnovers for him. And if he's a top player in the league, all of a sudden you don't see that, and then the team plays better. Overall, Foligno had no points in 8 games. He got hurt as day to day, or they're trying to figure out what's wrong with him. Hartman had his first goal since opening night over the weekend. Spurgeon's had to kind of carry the weight a little bit for Z Bouillon, which is why you're seeing his plus minus, I think, is -11 right now. Middleton had to help carry Juracek a bit, and Juracek's going through some growing pains and some issues that he's dealing with. So, I think if you look at it both sides, like A, that sounds like a big problem that all these guys are struggling at the same time. And B, like you've seen what they were capable to do last year in the playoffs, first half of last year. These aren't a completely different team. It's the same core group that did that. So you would think that wouldn't be, it's fixable. At least that's what they believe. But if you're reading the tea leaves and seeing what's happening and watching the games and how much faster other teams are, and they're playing from behind almost every game, and even with good goaltending with Gustafsson, they're still losing games. It's time to sound a little bit alarmed here with what's going on, because you can't, make the playoffs in the first 3 weeks, but you can certainly put yourself in a hole to miss it. I think that's what they're staring at right now. And the homestand, which was supposed to be critical, already lost the first 2 games. So I think if he continues down the same road for the homestand, you have to ask some difficult questions on the entire organization. So, I think that's where they're at right now. And I think we had a story today, Russo published, about Bill Guerin meeting with the captains before the homestand started. Foligno, Spurgeon, and Kaprizov kind of one just trying to talk to them what's going on. Obviously we need more from you, but like, what can we do to help you get there? Also, which was interesting to me, I know to Mike too, is so there's information gathering from some of these guys too, which kind of raised my eyebrows a little bit in terms of what that actually means. So I think overall, for this to be happening, 10 games into a season, the GM meeting with the captains and John Hines meeting individually with players who are struggling, like clearly they know the severity of what's happening, or they're not just saying it's early or this will pass, or, come see us, in 3 weeks. They know from what the eye test is telling them and from what the actual results are that something needs to happen and something needs to change fast before they turn this around before it becomes eventually a lost season.
Yeah, no, for sure. So, I mean, you've been covering hockey for many, many years now. In your experience, when there are dips like this and unexpected dips like this, what is the first shoe to drop usually? Is it a trade? Does the coach's seat get hot? Does a different coaches on the bench, maybe not the head coach, but some other area, does that seat get a little hot? Like, what past meeting with the captains and raising some alarms internally, what's usually the first shoe to drop? Because I think a lot of the fan base are asking, like, well, what is going to happen first if this continues? Is there going to be some changes coaching wise, or is there going to be player personnel changes?
Yeah, that's the tough thing, Isha, too, is because there's not really a lot that can be done, right? Like the roster is built and the guys that are signed, it's not like you can go up and just rip up this roster and trade guys or whatever. Very rarely do you see trades of large magnitudes 10 games into a season.
But would something small, like a small shakeup, send a message, you think? And I know that's a very small Band-Aid, but like if something has to give, do you see those type of things happening in this case?
Well, I have no doubt that Guerin's looking out and seeing what's out there in the market. The problem is, other teams are watching the Wild struggle. Like, your guys aren't at the best value right now. So, like, why would, and I don't think trading a third line winger is going to all of a sudden just rip apart the room to where it's like, okay, now we got to figure it out. Like, I think they're starting. I think that's what's telling to me is with Hines and Guerin both meeting with the players and trying to pull this, we're all part of the same team, we're all in this together thing, is they know that they need these guys. There's no big saviors coming from the outside. Like, they know to get the most out of these guys, they can't go in there and read the riot act and tell them they need to do this or else, because a lot of these guys are signed to long-term deals. Krill's not going anywhere. Gossie's playing well. He's not going anywhere. A lot of veteran guys, no trade clauses. Like, you can threaten all you want. That's not, it falls on deaf ears. So I think they're trying at least this part to be like, hey, how can we support you? How can we get you out of this? Because I think the jobs for anybody above the players depends on what the players do, right? And you see it time and time again. Easiest thing to do, one of the few things you can do when things are troubling is fire a coach, right? I mean, Dean Emerson, we saw that happen a few years back when you saw the way the team was playing and they had no answers. You heard the locker room, guys were frustrated, or, we're just losing. We don't know how to get out of it. And then that was one of the things you can play. But when you're a general manager who's already let go of 2 coaches,
exactly,
right? You don't get many chances to make 3 or 4 hires, right? Most GMs don't get that chance. So you have to be really careful of going to that route. Does not to say that Hines is going to be in trouble anytime soon, or is it not to say that his heat won't be hot anytime if they go 0-6 in this homestand. But I'm just saying, if you're up top, you're Craig Leopold and you're Bill Guerin, you have this 5-year plan, you're year 3. This wasn't how year 3 is supposed to go. This is supposed to be more than a playoff team this year, which means competing for a playoff spot and winning a round. And now you're going to be in a dogfight in a conference and a division that Utah is not going anywhere. Winnipeg, Dallas, and Colorado haven't fallen off. The Blues have kind of started even worse than the Wild, or a pretty rough start. But the Sharks, who are one of the worst teams in the league, just came in and won in your building, right? Even though you could say that you deserved a better fate. But so that's I think what you be careful of. It's easy to kind of try to figure out what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to trade everybody or make big changes. But I think, GMs only get so many shots at firing coaches and hiring and firing coaches. So, I think, John Hines bears some responsibility in this particular situation, like everybody in that building does. And that is the easiest thing to do. The guy, you can just let go of a coach and replace him with somebody else. But I think the guys in the room, they have more in them than what's been showing, and they are capable of more, and they are prideful players. They do care. They are trying. It's just that they're not executing at a very high level right now. And I think confidence is such a huge thing in hockey and life in this league. And you can see there's not a ton of confidence right now. There's a lot of frustration building, and that's not a way to get yourself out of a funk.
Yeah. I guess my question to open up the mailbag segment to you, Joe, is there's one particular player who, when the rest of the team is down in the dumps, he seems to rise from the ashes. One of the only players who is is sitting, I hate to say the word, comfortably at a -1 right now, who has 4 goals and is 4th in scoring on the team. The Minnesota Wild fan base's favorite player who just keeps on coming back, Marcus Johansson. Why, in these situations, does Marcus Johansson's play the loudest?
I mean, I know he's a favorite, like, whipping bag of Wild fans, and I can understand a certain respect, because you're like, you think that other guys will be ready and he's not supposed to play this role, but he's playing pretty
guys
good hockey.
Aren't ready, and he's playing the role.
He's playing pretty consistent hockey when a team that doesn't have a lot of those guys, right? And he's creating, and he's skating well, he's entering the zone, and so I'm not saying he's a perfect player or like the best player on the team, but when you're looking for guys who can make something happen or produce or create 5-on-5, there's not many 5-on-5 creators right now on that team. And so give him credit. Like, I don't know if this is his last year, or I know he signed here at least one more year, 800,000. He obviously 1,000 game is coming up in November if he continues to play and stay healthy, which I think is a big motivating factor for him coming back this season, is getting to that milestone marker, and obviously doing it in Minnesota, which he loves here, and his family is settled, and all that stuff. So he's been one of the few kind of bright spots in this group. And so I think, as much as fans were like going into the year, like, he'll be a 4th liner, he'll be an extra forward, or he'll be this. And that was if Liam Mogren stepped into a role and was ready to go. That was if Urov was ready to go in a top 6. And he's been some promising as of late. But, that's with Nico Sturm and Matt Zuccarello, regulars on this team, right? Like, this team has a different look to it if Zuccarello and Sturm are regulars in the lineup, and Liam Mogren is a regular that he's earned that spot. But at this particular point, they haven't, which is why you see Vinny Hinostroza playing sometimes in the top power play, or again with Kirill Kaprizov, because you have the injuries, or you have the guys that didn't come up and step up and show that they are ready. So Marcus Johansson, yeah, he's in the running for team MVP right now. So
didn't think we'd be saying that 10 games in?
No, you wouldn't be. And, like, again, it's not his fault or anybody else's fault. Like, I think
exactly. And that's why with me, it's like, I understand the frustration of, like, him coming back and, like, young players not being ready. So I have, like, a little bit of empathy, but I also like to poke the bear a little bit and be like, he's not as bad as you guys are saying.
And, like, they need him now. Like, he wasn't here. Like, and you want to push guys from Iowa that aren't ready, or you want to put a Pitlick up there or whatever, but injuries are going to happen even more now. Like, this is Foligno's out now. We don't know how long. Eriksson Ek gets usually injured because of the way he plays. So you need to have that depth, and there's not a lot of NHL ready depth, I think, in Iowa right now, which is another thing. You can't just go to that well and just call up a young prospect and shake things up, because the guys who are supposed to be up here in theory, the Yurov and Buyum, and now Juracek is there because Bogosian's out with a walking boot. So other than maybe a Hunter Haight getting more of a look, or maybe Spacek, I don't know why maybe he hasn't had a shot on the right side, yet. He's done so well over in international play, and guys love him there. So maybe if you give him a shot, a game or two, and see what he can do. Damon Hunt hasn't got an opportunity yet. So I think there's nobody that's going to be coming in from Iowa or prospect all of a sudden shake things up. And all of a sudden it's like, okay, this new guy's coming to bring us energy. So I think it'll have to come from the group that's been here for a while.
Yeah. All right, let's get to your guys' listener questions here on the mailbag portion of Fellowship of the Rink. Let's start with at Triple J Soda Triple J. He says, Joe, in your opinion, does Brodin look healthy?
That's a tough one. He's such an effortless skater and player that I don't see signs of him that he's slowed down per se. I know he came off the injury, the surgery after the World Championships, and missed the practices in camp. So it's understandable to start a little bit slower. He has been skating since captain's practices, just on his own. So I think both him and Faber in that pairing have struggled more than we thought they would. And Faber has been extra hard on himself, which he usually is. So they tried to get him going the other night, and he had 3 assists. But that pairing as a whole, I don't think Faber doesn't look hurt, but he's struggling, right? And so I don't know if it's the numbers make Brodin look like he's hurt or not, but I do think the fact that he didn't have a full training camp of practices probably slowed him down to start the season. But I think he's healthy at this particular point. I haven't seen any signs of him nursing something, but I think those two, that pairing, can be a lot better because they're capable of a lot more. They're really two talented defensemen, steady, smart players. And Brock, you feel kind of bad for him sometimes because he's so hard on himself. Even as a young player, he takes things really, really hard. And so like I mentioned, confidence is such a big thing that I think he needs to kind of flip the switch and get back to kind of the confidence that he had before. You saw him the first season half with his team. So I think if him and Brodin start working better together, then all of a sudden Brodin's going to look a lot better too.
Yeah. And there were some other questions asking about Kaprizov's health as well. From what I've seen, he seems healthy. It's just teams are double and triple teaming him in the offensive zone. Just doesn't have a lot of space. So it can't dangle through everybody when there's 3 guys on you.
And maybe you shouldn't dangle through 3 guys,
Yeah,
I think
that's a whole other conversation.
And again, Kirill's a creative player and he wants to, he probably feels pressure, not because of the contract, but because the team is struggling. He hates losing. So he probably wants to make plays and then nobody else is scoring. So he tries to make a couple different things that maybe he shouldn't have, which is why you're seeing the turnovers happen the way they are. And so either he has to kind of come back from that and play more of a direct game, which is what Hines wants him to play, north-south direct game going. He's such a physical player. He's so hard to get off the puck that he would do well in that system. But a lot of guys, they still want to carry it in. They don't want to just dump it and chase it. They want to carry it in and play and have fun, creative hockey like you saw with him and Zuccarello so many times. But I think with him, considering how important he is and the lack of offense traditionally they've been getting, getting him to play a more direct game and having him make some smarter decisions with the puck would be really important because, other guys take cues from the best players, right? And if he's the engine of the team, as guys have called him, then that's kind of starts with him. So it is tough when you're the only, top threats with him and Matt Boldy. If you're on the same line together, they're going to try to load up on you and make everybody else beat you. And so it could be a frustrating situation, but this is where, he gets the big bucks. And this is why he is the best player in franchise history. He needs to kind of help them not carry the whole team, but if he just sparks them with a big game or gets them into a win, all of a sudden that can help flip things a little bit. That's what you need your best players to do.
Yeah. At Futon GM, love it, asks Kaprizov, Yurov, Tarasenko, when? Might as well throw the lines in a blender. Nothing seems to be working. A fitting question for the Futon GM.
Better than armchair GM, right?
Yeah. That's why I dig it. Little crazy.
Rocking chair GM or beanbag chair GM. I think they've tried pretty much most combinations now, right? I don't know if that's been one. You're off be a young center between the two. Russian winger. So you could try it. And I'm not against putting Yurov like higher in the lineup. He's played second line recently too.
He's
because
looked comfortable in the National Hockey League recently. Whereas like the first couple games was like a little, big lights, jitters. Now it's like, he's not scoring, but there's no low NHL or low hockey IQ out there from what I see, or anything that needs to be developed in that sense.
No, he's a very, very smart player, and took a while for him to adjust a different style from the KHL to NHL. Different ice surface, and obviously it leads to a different game. There's a lot more puck battles all over the ice, NHL versus the KHL, just with the space and everything like that. And he had to get used to that, not only on face-offs, but just overall after the face-off and winning a battle to get the puck back and retrieve. And I think you start to see him turn the corner before the Rangers game. He got the goal as first NHL goal, which gave him a lot of confidence boost. And you're seeing him kind of go hard to the dirty areas and make some plays. And no, he hasn't scored a goal since, but you're not worried about him being responsible defensively. His defensive game was offensive game in the NHL, which is, I guess, if you want to be able to earn the trust of your coach, that's a good way to do it, right? Where I think sometimes, like with Zeev, his offensive game is ahead of his defensive game at the NHL level, which is where it makes it harder for coaches to trust you in that particular point. But I do think Yurov is trending up, not the flashy, wow kind of player that, people were wondering about because he's such a high prospect. He has those moments in him. He has those flashy moments in him, but he's not the one going to blow the highlight reel up. But he can be a dependable two-way center who can contribute in offensively. So he's the least of their problems at this point.
Yeah, agreed. At Daniels WSMN, he asked, does Jiricek have a similar profile to a young Brent Burns, i.e. high offensive upside, or what separates the two players when they were both entering the league?
This interview is brought to you by our friends at Waggle Golf. Waggle Golf believes what you wear on the course should reflect your individuality, who you are, where you're from, your hobbies, interests, and passions. All the stuff that makes you, well, you. That's why every design is inspired by the desire to create a piece of apparel that strikes a chord when you see it. That makes you say, wow, that was made for me. Because in a lot of ways, it was. Ready to get your waggle on? Go to getyourwaggleon.com, throw in promo code SP10 at checkout to take 10% off your entire order.
It's a good question. And obviously Brent Burns is a hell of a player, right? People forget he was,
forward as well.
Forward to start out, kind of gangly. Not saying awkward is the wrong word, but just trying to figure it out. And fortunately, he got moved to defense and then kind of took off mostly after he left the Minnesota Wild. But I think what Brent Burns is what's allowed him to play 1,500 games now, or I don't know how many games it's been, but is his hockey sense and awareness is allowed to make up for the fact that you eventually lose a step as a skater, right? He had that offensive gifted ability, he always has, but I think with Jiricek, is kind of the understanding of in decision making in his own zone and just kind of things where guys are more instinctive to make a play or to not make a play or to pick a guy to defend. It seemed like he's overthinking it because he probably feels some pressure and he makes a mistake or two each game where you're like, what did he just do? Not that he's not trying, he's trying hard, he cares, and he has a great attitude. I just don't know if it's clicking quite yet. And that's a hard thing to go through at the NHL level because it's such a humbling game. And they had Goligoski, good credit to him as a former player to start the conversation and watch a game with Jiricek. I think game 3 at home in the press box, they went over clips and watched the game and showed him where he can and should be and all that stuff. So he has some resources at play here. It's just now he's in a situation where he kind of has to play as the right shot defenseman unless you call up a spot check and let him play. And Bogosian's in a walking boot yesterday, so he's not playing anytime soon.
He's not coming back.
So I think trial by fire is a hard thing to do, but he needs to play. He needs to get minutes. He needs to get the reps, and you have to eventually decide whether he can do that at a high level or not. But Brent Burns, I think he has not just the offensive gifts and all that stuff, and the personality. We all know the personality, but like he's a smart hockey player, and you need to be have those instincts and like and all that stuff to make it this long in the NHL, which he has, and now playing for the Avs.
Yeah, he's just a special athlete too, because like obviously works his bag off even when he's traveling in the summer in his motorhome with the kids and family. Like he's been spotted doing his crazy workouts in like the parking lot of Walmarts and things like that. But I mean, there's athletes who just are different, man. And Phil Kessel was one of those guys. Dustin Byfuglien, who they tried to put on a crazy, I remember like diet and custom professional athlete workout program versus his, and so many people said it affected his game. It's like when Dustin Byfuglien had to do things the NHL way, not Dustin Byfuglien way, he wasn't as special of a player. And I feel like Brent Burns is maybe not full Byfuglien or Kessel. He's not eating bowls of freaking nacho cheese before games, but he still is just one of those like 3 in a million type of athletes.
Yeah, and that's why he's been around so long, and that's why and
he doesn't get that injured either, which is insane.
Yeah, he plays. He doesn't play like the Buffalo to the big physical type, but the NHL defenseman plays a hard game. So I'll give him credit for being the best ability. Best ability is availability, right? And
I can't believe Mark Stone hasn't taken notes yet. But anyways, how did this is from Mateo actually at MNO Wild Talk. How did the Oscar Olsen trade develop so far in Iowa? He seems like a valuable first round pick that should have cost more than a Kyle Master.
Yeah, I mean that was interesting. I think sometimes you do have guys that need fresh starts other places, and I don't know if this was particularly that case, but the Iowa Wild definitely needed help. Especially offensively, and losing some of their top guys to the NHL, not having a lot of NHL-ready guys there. So definitely gave them a boost. I think they went from 0-4 to 2-4, I think, over the weekend. So I think I'm not sure exactly like the semantics of how that particular trade developed, but I know like a chance for like maybe Kyle Masters to get a fresh start somewhere else, and you're looking around the league and seeing where you can improve yourself at different positions. And I think, Olsen was an interesting name that they looked out and got, and obviously it's been a help so far, and we'll see if this trend can continue with the Iowa Wild, because they need to play some winning hockey for the prospects to develop really well, and maybe they can get a little bit of a turnaround here to start the season.
Yeah, I was a little gutted to see Matthew Sopp get sent back down, but I'm hoping he just becomes a solid AHL player for them, even if he never gets an NHL game, because I liked what he did last year as well. But the fact that he did get sent down, which means they're giving guys who played better more looks, which I want Iowa to succeed. So I'll take my Matthew Sopp bias out of there. All right, I think we have time for 2 more questions. A lot of the other ones, guys, if we didn't get to yours, they were either answered in like the introduction to the mailbag, or one of your peers also asked it, and we're kind of throwing it in that basket. But we have one here from Dave Turk at Turk182_. It's a long-winded question, so I'll summarize it with this, Joe. He brings up a bunch of points, frustrations, moves that in regards to moves that Billy Guerin has made. So I'll read them out to you, and I just ask, like, do you think these are grounds for a GM change? He said he fired BB. He selected DE as the head coach and fired him. He hired John Hines. He signed Trennan, traded Duhaime, extended Middleton, Foligno, and Hartman both early when he could have traded both and possibly re-signed both. Does Leopold tell him what to do?
Oh, it's a lot in 148 or whatever.
Maybe we'll does Leopold tell him what to do? But like, do you think that is grounds for firing? I guess is where he's trying to get to.
Well, I think eventually it's a results business, right? And I think that Craig Leopold and Bill Guerin have a great relationship from what we've gathered. They've been in lockstep through a lot of different things. I think there are probably been things that have tested that, obviously the Krill thing being so difficult to get done. But Craig has always spoke highly of Bill. He gave him extension a couple of years ago and a promotion, president of Hockey Ops tag. So obviously he's a big believer there, but I think if I'm Craig Leopold, I would also, Billy bought himself some time with the buyouts, right? Patience with that. And then now he has the the money, and then he couldn't do much in free agency because guys weren't available. The salary cap went up at the absolute worst time for the Wild, that all of a sudden they would have had this advantage, and they didn't. So he's had some things work against him, but there are moves that have just kind of been puzzling. The Brandon Duhaime, he's still a high-level player at a low price, would look great and play the style of game that the Wild want to play. So that was kind of one where you could have had him still. And the Trennan thing, no insult to him as a player, but obviously I feel like the Wild did overpay in that particular case for him. And even though he came in great shape and was motivated, he still hasn't been productive. I know he's been bounced around a lot the first part of the year. So you could question decisions like that, trading to Declan Chisholm, not having that much depth there on the left side because of it, because he's going to cost a little bit too much with arbitration or the next contract. He's bought in and believes in his core, right? And the core to this point hasn't rewarded him in the playoffs. So I think he is going to go up and down based upon what the core does. So I don't know if this is something where he's in trouble, because I think Craig Leopold is a big believer and he has this 5-year plan. This is year 3, but I think the Heat will continue to kind of go up depending how the season goes, because there is a lot more expectations now. The dead cap hits are over, or pretty much over. They have flexibility. They have guys that they wanted to sign. They're betting on this core. So if this ends in a no playoff situation, I think there has to be a lot of questions or more pressure put on the roster construction and who is in charge of that, right? That's Bill Guerin, and he's made some shrewd moves. He's got the Gustafsson deal was a great move. I think you got the Faber out of the Fiala deal, which was great. He's made some really good moves as a GM, but there's been a lot of other ones that you could probably question, and especially when it's result-oriented business, when you haven't won a playoff series in 10 years. And while Bill Guerin hasn't been here for 10 years, been 7, and Leopold's been here for 20, so it's like, or less than 20, but he's been here for a long time. So he's as a passionate of a fan for the Wild as anybody, and he takes these losses hard. So I could imagine, there's plenty of blame to go around when a team doesn't produce or doesn't have success in the playoffs. And I think Bill Guerin would tell you it starts at the top. So that's why I think right now he's trying to get the guys, we're all in this together. We're trying to make sure, get ourselves out of it, because, doesn't make sense for him to point blame at himself for guys that he picked up. He believes in the guys and wants to get them to do well. And if they turn it around, this is something we'll look back on end of the season, like, oh, that was a rough start, but they found their way out of it. Or it could go the other way. And I think the turning point could happen the next few weeks here.
Yeah, because sometimes it just is like you can put together a good team, but maybe that good team was supposed to be great and they're not. And it comes down to, shoot, we built the team we thought was going to be that high level, but they're just not. And again, I lived in British Columbia, Canada during the Jim Benning era of Vancouver Canucks. And let's just say there were a couple teams that didn't work that they held on to a little too long. Yeah. So I think you're right. In depending how this season ends, good, bad, or ugly, there's going to be, there's going to be a lot to unpack on this roster construction. There's going to be some I told you so's, or there's going to be some, what the hell do we do after this? Because you can't tear down the wall now. Everything's pretty much locked in. Last question here. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, because I think people have asked me about Tampa too. Like they stuck with their core after all these disappointments. Like they went on playoff runs though. Like they went deep into playoffs and they showed their ability to win. And so I think that earned them the trust, and that earned them the ability to let's give this a shot. Maybe it just needs one little extra piece here. Maybe it needs this. Maybe it needs
one coach. That's huge as well.
Yeah, and that's a rare, it's a unicorn thing. John Cooper is such a different scenario in the NHL where a guy's been there that long. So it's not quite apples to apples in that particular case. They didn't have the dead cap hits and all that. But what's more I'm saying is you reward, you bet on a team when you see kind of reasons for them to succeed. They think they can succeed and they can win playoff series. So I think the Wild really felt last year was a year they could do it. And I thought that was a year that the Wild could really win that playoff series. I think we're all sides away from being up 3-2 in the series. They had the team to do it, and they were performing well enough to do it, which is I think why it was such a kick in the gut, probably for fans, for the team. I know that because of where they felt they were, what they could do after that round. But ultimately, at the end of the day, it goes based upon not how you felt different or how it looked or how you thought that should happen. The results oriented business, and that's just where it is right now. But long season ahead. But I think it's a turning point in the next few weeks here of, can they get out of this homestand? Can they turn things around? Can they get back into the thick of things in the West? Because you start putting yourself behind the 8 ball so soon. It can be a long and frustrating season when you're losing and you're banged up and there's not as much to play for. So, let's see how they work themselves out of it.
Yeah. Last question. The answer might not be a lighter note, but it comes from an account that makes us all smile. At Russo Slacks says or asks, "What's the Wild's record wearing the 78s?"
Oh man, that's a good one. I felt like the first early on, like they were really good with those. I felt like I don't have the tangible record. I need to look that up actually, but I think that's obviously didn't go well recently. But like I think in the beginning, I thought it was like, okay, this is, guys look great. It was just like fans loved it, but.
Yeah, I'll tag you in his comment so that if you do want to go back and give him the stats, he'll know we at least addressed it.
That hasn't been on my major number one radar right now with everything going on, but it's definitely an intriguing question to ask for sure.
Awesome. Well, hey, thank you to everybody who supports the show, who listens to, well, mostly Hoppy and Joe weekly, and for your concern for this team, and honestly asking us a lot of good questions for this particular week, because it's funny, there was one response to the thread, Joe, that was like, really boys, a mailbag this week after last performance? And I feel like, yeah, there's going to be some that are just like, tear it all down or whatever, but for the most part, some really good questions, and we really appreciate you guys. Yeah,
absolutely. And like, again, this could be a good time for a mailbag when people want to ask questions or concerns. Sometimes they're middle of the year where things are rolling and like you're just answering a lot of questions on this prospect or this guy, but there are positives to say about some of the guys on the team and where it is. But right now, we planned the mailbag a week ago and things change a lot in a week in this business. But thanks to everybody for listening and for asking questions.
Zamboni's on 7th Restaurant and Bar at 174 West 7th Street, right across the street from Grand Casino Arena. We're going to keep calling it the X. More than just your go-to spot before, during, and after all your favorite downtown events, Zamboni's on 7th is now your spot for late-night downtown eats. On game days, event days, and plain old regular days, Tuesday through Saturday. Zamboni's on 7th is now serving their delicious tavern-style pizza, as well as fried specialties late into the night. Check out their menu online at zambonison7th.com or stop by for a few beers, cocktails, or sodas and dig in. Zamboni's on 7th. Before, during, and after. Way after. Now, go for hockey.
All right, we are back, and we are joined by a contributor to our MNCAA, friend of the show, and someone who's going to talk a little Minnesota Gophers, but only because of the last series in which UMD, the Bulldogs, swept the Minnesota Golden Gophers. Max Veech, welcome to the show.
I'm happy to be here. The intro was great. It just kind of reminded me of everything I got to live this past weekend, and after what happened last year, I'm going to enjoy it as much as I can.
God, I have to commend Veech over here, because last year he brought so much positivity to the show every single week, just like grasping for every little bit of positivity. And I'll say, like, I don't think you ever cracked.
There were a couple of weeks where I probably got down by my own standards, but in terms of the general fan base, I'm certainly I was trying to maintain a positive outlook. I was, as you said, I was grasping at straws, and I know that you were trying to tiptoe around it, but I was absolutely trying to find anything I could there. And it was a matter of, oh yeah, UMD has lost a lot, but 90% of their losses are to ranked opponents, and nobody else can say that. And we've got more wins than all of these ranked teams, and coming up with all the caveats to why UMD was being looked down upon, when in reality, I'll be the first one to admit, at this point in the season of this year. Last year was a bit of a struggle for a number of different reasons, and I'm happy to see that the program has certainly turned it around and is looking much, much better this year.
Well, that's a perfect segue into why are the Bulldogs so damn good?
One, they've got a relatively fully healthy roster for a good chunk to start the season. I know last year Max Plant played in the first game. I think he got hurt in the first game. If it wasn't the first game, it was the first series against Bemidji there, or one of the first two anyway. And so he was out for a significant period of time, and that's when they kind of came into a lot of the tough series and struggles that they were coming up against. I know the Minnesota series, obviously they got the sweep last year against the Bulldogs, and that one wasn't very pretty. I know the Friday game of that series was 7-5, and it looks competitive on paper, but in reality it was a blowout, and UMD got 4 goals in the third period to make it look like a game, which was great. And then Saturday came around and Minnesota dominated them again. For a multitude of different reasons. And it was similar vibes for North Dakota, UMD's arguably other biggest rival. And then it was, more of the same there in trying to have a good squad match up with somebody that's just kind of outpowering you in every aspect of the game. Whereas this year, we've got the Bulldogs have a relatively fully healthy roster. Max is obviously there. They're getting contributions from some guys that, maybe weren't stepping up as much last year. The defensive core is playing much, much better. You're not having as many, freshman turnovers as you did the previous couple of seasons, and putting your goalie in a bad position. And then speaking about goalies, you've got Adam Guyon, who's playing significantly better than he did last year by his own regards, and everybody on the team has said as much as well. And it's been his net to start with. He's not, switching back and forth with some other goaltenders on the line, which is good and can be good from a competition standpoint, where you're kind of having guys battle and bring out the best in one another. But it can also be a little bit detrimental if you get into a situation where, I had a good night. Why am I not starting? Oh, I had a really bad night. I don't get to redeem myself. It's kind of a mental game and a balance that you have to figure out. And this year they don't have to figure it out. He's playing great. And in the one game they lost to a better goalie who was hot, and that's pretty much the end of it. I think they dominated that game, and they just didn't come out on top. The puck didn't find the back of the net. But otherwise, yeah, I've got no complaints from Guyon or the rest of the team in general. I think everybody's having fun. And that's another big part of it as well. Just the vibe. I was lucky enough to go sit down in the locker room area with the media pass this past weekend, and just the guys coming out of the locker room. Obviously after a win, it's going to be a little bit different, but having fun with one another. It seems like it's a really tight-knit group, and obviously, with the Plant brothers, it's going to be hard not to be pretty tight-knit, but even with the rest of the team, joking with one another, forwards and defense, and there's no separation that you might see on some other squads, and that has quite a bit to do with what I would say the success that they've had this far.
I can just hear the excitement in your voice too.
I'll
to turn around this year. So from an outside perspective, but also drawing from what you saw just last weekend, what's wrong with the Gophers right now? My just quick 2 cents, as I watched their first few games, and I was at actually the second game when they played BC, which was funny enough on a Friday when they had that like Thursday, Friday series. And I thought that was a good telling point, because both those teams lost some top guys last year to pro, but both of them still highly ranked, both of them still dangerous. But for me, it was BC played a physical game throughout the entire game. And it wasn't like, talking like Quebec League physical or WHL physical, but just physical hockey.
Right.
And the Gophers just kind of let them push them around, capitalized on opportunities when they did, and actually ended up winning the game in shootout. So I guess not actually winning the game, but
the college hockey shootout, which doesn't mean anything for non-conference play other than, stroking some egos and
exactly. So long of the short of it, it was a physicality thing for me. Yeah. Do you think that's an issue overall? And what else did you see?
I would say that it can be, and it did play roles this past weekend as well. I would say in defense of the Gophers, as hard as it is for me to do, on Saturday during that game, for the second period for sure, but even into that third period a little bit, the Gophers were getting the better of the Bulldogs from that physicality standpoint. They weren't just getting they just weren't getting the results on the backside or getting rewarded for it. I think they had a couple of missed bounces in front of the net where it was just going over a stick, or a poke check from UMD that, 9 times out of 10 might not work, that was hitting. And that's tough to kind of battle through for, the last 40 minutes of a game. But that wasn't the only thing. I think there was a little bit of disconnect between the lines, and Motzko, rightfully so, in my opinion, shuffled up the lines from Friday to Saturday quite a bit. I don't know that there was a single one that was uniform throughout, which can cause its own problems. But when you're struggling to find your identity there, it's something that you have to do. And I would say Airy, it kind of came out that he was dealing with some illness and just kind of getting over it on that Friday game, maybe not ready to go. And so not having him in net when that's the traditional spot that he's been starting, these previous weekends anyway, probably plays into it. Even if you have, equal goaltenders, if you have a team in front of you that's used to having one guy back there, you might play a little bit differently, or plays into that mindset a little bit. And so that goes into what I was just mentioning with UMD, and some of the struggles that they had last year. They didn't know which one was going to be in net, who was going to be having a good night, and some of that stagnation in front of a goalie, or trepidation is probably a better word, in front of a goalie, just because you're not sure of what's going to be happening in the game, or not sure of what the strength is behind you. And so even a fraction of a second on a defenseman's stick specifically, but anybody out there on the ice, can make all the difference in the world when you're talking about a couple of bounces here or there. And yes, it was a 3-goal margin of victory for the Bulldogs on both sides, but there's an empty net goal in there on Saturday, and there's a really tight race for the majority of the game on Saturday, where it could have swung the other way, I would say, pretty easily there. And Guyon made sure that didn't happen from a UMD standpoint and stopped those ones. But I think all of those smaller things go into some of the struggles that the Gophers are having right now. And the biggest thing that UMD did specifically on Friday, or they did it much better on Friday than Saturday anyway, was forcing them to the outside. And Minnesota has had so much success up the center, up the middle of the ice in some of those, breakout chances in some of these other series, and specifically in the past couple of years, that they just weren't getting this past weekend. And credit to UMD for doing it. But yeah, it's been tough for them just to find guys in open ice there. And I think they probably will be able to do that. It's just going to be a matter of figuring out the correct lines that gel together and play well together, and find something that clicks and stick with that for a little bit.
Well, last thing here before we let you go, Max, and thank you so much for hanging out with us. We really appreciate it. And I'm so excited that we get to ask you this question, because on every podcast we get to ask our Waggle question of the week. And I know you're a big Waggle fan. I know you're sporting the hat right there.
Big guy. Yeah, I think this is the right side with the logo.
There it is. I'm literally decked out head to toe right now. Everyone's been commenting on how comfortable this is, and now that it's getting a little chilly out, guys, go get your Waggle on.
It looks good. I like the duck hat a lot.
It is good, and it's like, usually I'm very much like a grays, whites, and blacks, like a bunch of shades.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
I don't mind the color, which is exactly like our SOTA POD, branding background anyways. But anyways, before we go too off the track here.
Final question brought to you as always by our good friends at Waggle Golf. First, make sure you head over to getyourwaggleon.com. Throw in promo code SP10 to take 10% off your entire order.
Max, I ask you, what is your dream golf foursome?
Ooh, a dream golf foursome. This is going to come to a surprise to some, but the most obvious answer to many. I'm obviously in the foursome. I'm not going to be sitting there watching. So there's one.
Yeah, no, that's good. They ask Hoppy or Scott, sorry, and Joe. They ask this to every single guest, and sometimes the players will just forget and be like, "Oh, I guess I'm just watching."
No, I'm making sure I'm a part of this one, despite the fact that I'm really no good at golf. I shoot a 94 every course I play, and it doesn't matter if I'm playing on a Pete Dye course. It doesn't matter if I'm playing on a Muni somewhere. I'm shooting a 94.
The last time I went out, somebody who works at the golf course handed me a hockey stick and said, I think this will be better for you.
Yes. Okay. So myself, one, Tom Brady, believe it or not. I know I'm supposed to be a Minnesota fan. I know I'm supposed to.
That's a regular one, by the way.
Commiserate. Oh, is it? Okay, great.
Yep.
I mean, he's proven that he can be entertaining on the golf course, entertaining just to hang out with. He's a pretty decent golfer, I think most people would admit to, and I think he's just got so many stories I would be interested in learning from. So that would be another one there. It's tough for me to come up with the other two because I'm going to leave.
It doesn't
out
have to
so
be
many
athlete. It can be anybody, right?
Oh, for sure.
Fictional character, anything. Yeah.
Dead or alive too?
Yep.
Oh man.
Frank Sinatra, funny enough, has been a regular one with
Really?
with a diverse crowd.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think this is going to be strange, but Gandalf from Lord of the Rings. Now that
oh my god, it's so fitting
because of the logo in the middle of the screen here. But there's a tendency for guys to smoke out on the golf course, and when I think about smoking and in nature and whatnot, that's the guy that comes to mind for me. Like there's plenty of other people that others might think of, but that's the one. And I think just the sight of having the big pipe out there just blowing rings on the course would be hilarious. And there might be some, chicanery out there where, he's doing some wizardry and making some balls go in. But, hopefully that's on my side. And maybe I shoot better than the 94 there.
Just to quickly go back to hockey too, I'm sure he's a great defenseman because, you shall not pass.
Of course. Yes. The fourth one. Is it just too much of a homer if I say Scott Sandlin? I would love to pick his brain about some of the past stories that I've heard rumors about, and I would like to see if they're true or not. I would love to hear some more from him on verification or lack thereof for what some of the other guys are saying behind his back.
I love it. I love how we get a diverse answer from this question every week. Guys, again, our Waggle Golf question brought to you by our friends at Waggle Golf. And Max, thank you so much for joining us and jumping on here as I fill in for Scott here on Fellowship of the Rink. Go Gophers and go UMD this year. I put it this way. As we conclude the segment here, when I moved to Minnesota, I saw that Bemidji were the Beavers, and I was like, Canada, Beavers. All right, I'm going to be a Bemidji fan. Since living in Minneapolis, I've kind of been like, screw the Beavers. I'm pretty much like Gophers now. But I love to see the smaller schools, quote unquote, succeed. Fine. The smaller programs succeed. Okay, so like seeing UMD turn it around this year, and like seeing like the program like the Tommies, rising quicker than everybody expected, does still warm my heart. I'm not a salty Gophers fan. I'm just a new Gophers fan. But again, appreciate it, man. And we'll talk again soon.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Zamboni's on 7th, restaurant and bar right across the street from Grand Casino Arena in downtown St. Paul. You'll find a joke at 8 p.m. on Wednesdays. Enjoy happy hour food and drink specials when you stop in for the shows. Or if you've got something to say and enjoy stepping into the spotlight, go to zambonison7th.com and sign up to join the show. Spots fill up fast, and they do cap the number of comedians each week, so do not delay. Also, stay tuned for details on their once-a-month Friday night comedy show, Freaky Funny Fridays, beginning Friday, November 21st. Featuring some of the hottest comedians in the Twin Cities. Zamboni's on 7th is a joke, but only on Wednesday evenings. And the occasional Friday. Thank you all for tuning in as you continue every week. Numbers keep growing. You guys have been awesome supporters. Do also check out some fun things across the network. We've actually just wrapped up our top 20 Minnesota Wild prospects. Collaboration we did with the Minnesota Wild Prospects account, both on Twitter and Facebook, that you all love. Great work there from Baki and Pavel. Also, the formerly known as group, Sound the Foghorn. Brett, of course, a member of the network as well now. But check out, again, our rankings are far from perfect. Come in, tell us what you like, dislike. We're open to any discussion there. You can check it out both on Judd's Buds and on the YouTube channel. And any of you that are into beer, I know that it's not for everyone. So if not, hey, totally understand. But anyone that likes craft beer, you were probably as bummed as me to see Dangerous Man fall by the wayside. They are already back. They are going to come back stronger than ever. Beer coming out soon in distribution, and check out the interview for some nuggets on what comes next as far as regrowing, rebuilding that awesome brand and experience. But that's it for this week. Tune in next week. Stay classy, stay to hockey.